we'd get up at 8, like do some email stuff. Appointments would start at 9. Appointments would end at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Any meetings that were interleaved in Zoom. I wish it would be different. I love when my grandson comes over and like actually forces me to get outside and chase after a baseball or something. But yeah, this Zoom and nothing but Zoom it takes a toll, right? I mean, and I'm not I'm not 30 anymore either, right? So like there's some artifacts that are attributable to that too. But in the main, I'd rather be talking to students than not. And if this is the mechanism that we have to do it, it will make it work. I have never been so proud as recently to have been affiliated with a school that has a computational biology department, right? Like if ever we needed people to bring to bear the horsepower of computer science to solve a biological pandemic, right? It's now, right? I mean, the fundamental difference between 1918 and 2020 is we understand the science better, and we have the computational technological tools to move faster, right? To analyze better, right? So, that's a cool thing. I mean, I think that's a fundamental contribution that discipline will be making to the effort to beat this thing. If the spring proved nothing, it proved how difficult it is to do what we do when we're not doing it together, right? Like, this notion that, well, we're all smart and we can just do stuff, right? There's an implicit motivational piece that comes along for the ride, right? And it's much harder to get motivated when you're sitting in your room, right, staring at a screen or not staring at a screen, right? It's much harder to get motivated. I mean, I've had students, advisees tell me, and I actually referenced this in my little commencement speech, like parents saying to their sons and daughters, hey, you work a lot harder than Johnny down the street who goes to University XYZ. What's up with that? The parents are getting a bird's eye view of what it means to be a CS student at CMU. The amount of work that you have to do, the discipline it takes to get that stuff done, the fact that you do need to reach out to your lab partner, right, or other people, your friends, as you work through these things. And that's much easier to do when you're in situ, right? Like when you walk into Gates, right, on the 5th floor, right? You walk in on a Friday evening, right? You got 112 students coming out of every possible crevice in the 5th, floor, right? Working on stuff. And like, that's going to motivate you. It's like, when you see all these people working, right? You're probably primed to do that work, right? It's much harder when you're not in that space, right? When you're not, you seeing other people work hard. It's not about competition. It's about reinforcement. Right? Like, it helps you get motivated in that space. And it's just harder to do that when you're sitting in your bedroom, right? Staring at the screen. It's not the bricks and the mortar. It's the people inside the bricks and the mortar that make this work. It's the community, right? And so because the community is sort of well-formed, we leverage that. And talk to every faculty member in CS, and they will tell you the spring, if it had to happen the way it happened, was actually not as bad as it could have been, because they had the students for 6 weeks and could form those like internal communities in the courses and then leverage that formation through the 6 weeks that was now online. I think we do recognize that we do have to pull a little harder, right? We are trying to figure out as best we can, right, how to make this work. And we may not get it right. And I think there were some indeed missteps in the spring. But I think what everybody seems to recognize is that we are all trying to pull and row the boat together, right? We are all trying to make it as good as we can. And I think we're all receptive to suggestions, right? And we know where some of our weaknesses are. And I think one of the things that I think we do well in CSD and SCS more broadly, right, is this self-reflection piece. I definitely, I had a lot of students, we polled students asking them, at the end of the semester, how well their courses went and whether or not they'd be interested in nominating, a course or a faculty member for a job well done. And I had a lot of email I had to send to faculty, from that poll, right? Where students said, this faculty member, it was like we never missed a beat, right? We went from, CMU to not CMU, and everything was really, really good. And I don't want to name names because there were a lot of them. I sent out a lot of those emails, but I think the key piece was to almost every email I sent, the faculty member wrote back to me and genuinely thanked me for forwarding that and felt good, right? That actually the students, like it's this mutual reinforcement, right? The students know that we care and the faculty care that the students care, right? And I think that's again, part of what we do. That's part of our community. When a student emails me and says I need to talk to you about something, right? It's that student contact. Yes, it's not the same as being in my office, right? Being 4 feet away across a desk, but that's still my favorite thing to do in the course of a day, right? Those weeks that I talked about earlier, physically pain-inducing though they might have been for a while, that was the high point of my spring semester, right? It was for all intents and purposes what it normally was, right? Me talking to students about course issues, life issues, COVID issues, family issues, all of that stuff. And those are not all happy conversations, but those are all incredibly deeply rewarding conversations, and that still makes me happy, right? There's no question that the part of the job I love the best is working with students either to solve programming problems in the context of 112 office hours, right, or personal problems, right? How to best navigate this moment in your life that is either unexpected or overwhelming or both, right? And not that I have the right answer all the time, but I hopefully can afford a useful ear, and yeah, I mean that hasn't changed. The conduit has changed, right? This is different than that, but and I'm much less hug prone than in my office, but and I think that's something we could all use a little bit more of too, right? This virtual hug somehow, but it's about support, right? And those are the things that are very meaningful to me, and those do bring me joy. Like I said, I have my grandson over here. He occasionally Zoom bombs a meeting, but I only allow him to do so with people who on the other end of the wire, are not at a higher rank than I am. So he's not here today, but he'll occasionally pop in, and he loves to go through my emails and delete the things that I don't even really need to read, right? So he's like, delete, grandpa. It's like, yes, ding, ding, ding. So those it's those things that continue to bring me joy. It's easy to smile because it's better to smile, right? You can't get too overwhelmed. I will say that there was a particular day about 3 weeks ago, where I devoured a pint of Graeter's Madagascar vanilla in one eating. That's my go-to comfort food.